Hi, today I'm going to answer the question of what do you do if you get sick and you need to go to a doctor right away? Now, this is a kind of emergency where maybe you have a fever or something like that, not like a heart attack. That's another video. So, if you're truly sick and you need to see a doctor and you're an expat or immigrant in Portugal, then you have a couple of different options. My name's Cordelia and this is Day to Day Portugal. On this channel, I help expats and immigrants navigate daily life so that they can settle in living here comfortably and confidently. It depends a lot on where in Portugal that you live. But in general, the emergency rooms in the private medical facilities, so that's COOF, Loose, and there's a couple others, there's smaller local medical clinics, but the larger hospitals have emergency rooms. They also serve as an urgent care clinic. So if you have a fever, if you're throwing up, something like you have a rash all over you, something like that. By the way, those are all examples that have happened to me or people I know. Then you can go there, you can check the website. It'll usually tell you the wait time for the emergency room. Now, of course, that's the wait time to get triaged, not the wait time to get seen. But anyway, you can go, you can get seen by a doctor. They will prescribe you whatever medicine you need for your condition right then and there. So if you have a fever or something like that, that is one option. The cost on that depends. I know that if you go to COOF, which is where we go a lot, I think without insurance, it's 50 euros. And with insurance, I think it's 35 euros, maybe I want to say, to go for an emergency visit. And that covers everything. If you go, they're going to give you your prescriptions. If you need like an IV, if you need any treatment at the hospital, that covers the whole thing. The other option you have if you're sick is if you have health insurance. Most health insurance providers have an on-call doctor line, and they also have a doctor that will come to your home. So you can call your insurance provider and say, hey, I need to talk to a doctor, and then they will have a doctor call you. This is good, A, if you basically are going to be home all day and you can just wait for their phone call because they don't usually schedule it. And B, if you're honestly not that sick. And the reason I say that is because I have had the insurance doctors have sometimes called me and been great. Other times they just literally never called, or I had one doctor that was supposed to come to our home and just never showed up. It's good if you're sick and you need help, but you're not like really sick. But definitely give that a try. I will say it tends to work better during business hours. So if you happen to be sick on a Monday at 2 p.m., then you're going to have better service than if it's on a Sunday night at 9 p.m. There's some online providers as well. There's one called doctoronline.pt that I have used. And you can get in there, and I think it's 35 euros for an appointment, and I'll put a link in the description. And that's another good one if you basically just know that you need medicine. I had an illness and I had a fever on and off for a couple weeks. So I called, and this was on Christmas Day. The insurance company didn't pick up the phone. I didn't want to go to the emergency room on Christmas Day because I knew it would be packed. And plus I was really pretty sick, so I didn't want to sit in the emergency room. So I tried the doctoronline.pt. I figured if it didn't work, I could still go to the emergency room later. And because I had very specific symptoms that were similar to what a lot of other people were having, the doctor basically knew, like I said, I have this. And she said, oh yes, you're like the third person I've spoken to that had those same symptoms. She prescribed me antibiotics on the call. I was able to go to the pharmacy that day, Christmas Day, and get my medicine, and it really did make a big difference. So that's a really good service. Now, I will say that we did it once with my son, and because he was a child, they were less interested in prescribing him antibiotics over the phone call. They basically said, give him another week and see if he gets better. And I knew that he had an infection, but they didn't really care what I thought. So they didn't think he had an infection. So in that case, we ended up actually having to go in and see a doctor, and then he got the medicine he needed. So it depends from at least an American perspective. If you have to spend 30 or 35 euros to see a doctor, to me, that is an affordable expense. I know that for some people, that's a lot. I haven't gone through the public system for a non-emergency. So in other words, you have a fever, you're not dying. But I know people have for their children, or they've had an eye infection or pink eye or something like that. Now there's a thing where if you go to the public emergency room, they actually want you to call the health system first and basically do the triage on the phone, and then they'll tell you where to go. And they do have an English speaking component. I haven't used it. I've just heard about it. So I've heard with children, especially if you go to the pediatric emergency room, you can get really good care. But I've also heard not. So I think like a lot of emergency rooms in a lot of places in the world, it depends if you happen to hit them when they're not as busy. You can definitely give it a try. The other thing you can do is when you go to the public emergency room, they're going to triage you and give you like a bracelet, a coded bracelet. So it's a color like stoplights. So red means you're super duper emergency. And then there's yellow, I think, and then green. And green is basically you need to see a doctor, but you're not on the brink of death. So the nice thing about that is if you actually think you're having like a real emergency where you're in real trouble, you can go there. They're going to triage you. If they give you a green bracelet and it's crowded, you're going to be waiting a long time. So at that point, you at least know you're not dying. You can then go to the private system if you want. It's just an option. But in a nutshell, if you're sick and you just need to see a doctor, you can go to the private emergency room. If it's during business hours, a lot of towns have like clinics of some sort. If it's off hours or on a holiday, then you want to go to an emergency room or on a weekend. You can use an online provider like doctoronline.pt. So those are just a few options if you're sick. I'm going to do some more videos on getting healthcare in Portugal because it's one of those things that when you're planning a move, you don't necessarily worry about. But once you're here, if you're sick or you have a chronic health condition, it's a really big deal. The healthcare system here is fantastic, but it is a system. It has rules. It has spoken rules, unspoken rules, and things for you to figure out. So I'm happy to help with that. Okay, please put in the comments what your experience is, if you've had any experiences getting health care that I didn't mention, or if you have a question, I'll be happy to try and answer it either in the comments or in another video. Thank you so much. This is Day to Day Portugal. On this channel, I help expats and immigrants navigate daily life so that they can settle in living here comfortably and confidently.